As photographers, we must learn to express ourselves through our work in creating art that conveys personal messages, meanings, and ideas that we believe in. We can express ourselves in numerous different ways through numerous different career paths. One of those career paths is as a studio photographer. Studio photographers are hired by clients to capture events, persons, or ideas. For this project, each student will be considered a professional studio photographer who owns their own portraiture business. This is in fact how most studio photographers earn a living. Clients will come to them and ask them to photograph events like weddings, family occasions, and other life events. We will be acting as if we are studio photographers. It will be the responsibility of each photographer to take a series of photographs of your client for their school yearbook page. The photographs that you take will be candid shots. You will deliver to your client a full-color 8.5 by 11-inch page that has 4 edited photographs on it, with an interesting layout and color harmony using techniques in Adobe Photoshop. This project will connect back to our previous learning. The artistic concept that we are addressing through this project is the concept of collaboration, or basically an exploration of the client-photographer relationship. To collaborate, the photographer must get to know their client really well. Students will learn to express their ideas and personal meanings as it pertains to their client's personality, as shown through the photographs and layout of the page. The client and photographer have to work hand in hand or collaborate well together to make this happen. The yearbook page created will have a strong visual emphasis and explore how color can create a mood and a sense of harmony. Emphasis and color are the elements and principles of design we are exploring with this unit. Students will be paired up for this project. One will act as client, one will act as photographer, and then you'll switch. Working closely with your client, you will collaborate to create a yearbook page for them that uses color to create a mood and candid photographs to capture who they are and their interests. This yearbook page will have 4 photographs. 1 will be posed. The rest will be candids. Each photograph should take into account who the client is, and it should visually communicate the personality of the client. The page should have a clear area of emphasis. That area of emphasis can be created using various compositional techniques, like scale and framing. The colors should be harmonious and show mood. As discussed in class, certain colors can evoke a mood or a feeling in the viewer. Blue can be calming or sad. Yellow can be happy and bright. Red can be powerful, and so on. The layout of the entire page should be visually interesting and work to enhance the photographs, not take away from them. The layout of the photographs and the entire page should be well thought out and communicate the personality of the client. Before we begin, we must understand what a candid photograph is. A candid photograph is a picture that is captured without creating a posed appearance. These photographs are spontaneous. They are often achieved by avoiding prior preparation of the subject. Think of it as capturing an instant in time, as if you, as the photographer, were a fly on the wall watching the events happen. You are not a distraction to the subject, and you're not deliberately drawing their attention to you during the photography session. You're just watching the events unfold and photographing them. Again, a candid photograph should be spontaneous and not planned or staged. Photographs of this nature often capture emotion and events that are difficult to recreate in a posed photograph. There are several tips and techniques that will help you take strong, candid photographs. The first tip or thing to consider is to have your client do an activity that they enjoy. Take spontaneous shots of this. Be an observer. Don't directly draw their attention to you, but see what you can capture while they're doing the activity. Move around frequently to find the best composition. In this photograph, called Couple in Paris by Robert Frank, we see the couple doing an activity, bumper cars at a street fair, and Frank has captured their spontaneous joy. Another tip or thing to consider is using props to engage the subject and to help you create a visual story. In this photograph, the child is captured playing with a toy. Think about what props might help tell a story about your client and who they are. Yet another thing to consider, or a tip to try, is to change your perspective or angle that you're shooting at. In this photograph entitled New York, 1974 by Elliot Erwitt, we as the viewer are at a low to the ground level, or a worm's eye view, looking up. By not including the person's head, Irwin has made the dog the visual emphasis of the photograph and captured an interesting, funny moment. Another thing to consider when taking candid shots is to focus your lens on one specific area of your subject, like hands or feet, to again tell a visual story. You don't always have to show the face to show personality. Discuss with your client what could they be doing that you could focus on their hands. Discuss with your client what they could be doing that doesn't necessarily show their face, but still tells the viewer something about them and their personality. In this photograph, the photographer has zoomed in on the baby's feet to show how tiny they are, and as something for the family to remember. When taking candids, we as photographers must also think about where our subject is looking, or their gaze. You may at times want your subject to look directly at you. You may want them looking somewhere else. But since these are candid photographs, you don't want to call their attention to you. Instead, as the photographer, you should be moving around at all times to take these candid shots. That way you can sometimes capture them looking at you, but sometimes not. Consider what it means in your photograph to either have your subject looking at you or not. What emotion or part of their personality might that convey? Great candid photographs capture a fleeting moment, a spontaneous event. As photographers, we must anticipate that moment. Pay attention to the smallest details. Really observe your client, what it is that makes them who they are. Try to capture that in your photographs. Be always at the ready. You never know when a good candid shot will come to you. In this photograph, the photographer has captured the spontaneous joy felt between mother and child. Lastly, when taking candid photographs, always consider composition. But think outside of the box. Remember all the rules and guidelines we've discussed so far in class. The rule of thirds, leading the eye, depth of field, negative space, framing, visual emphasis, subframing, perspective. These are just some of the many ways to create strong compositions in photographs. Use your environment around you to help you create something visually interesting. In this composition by Rosa Wolf, she has done just that. As with previous lessons, we are building on our knowledge of camera techniques. So far, we've learned the basics of digital camera use off of automatic mode, what ISO is and what that does for lighting, and now we will be exploring white balance. White balance is a setting on the camera that is used to control how colors are captured through the lens in different types of light. The accompanying chart gives you a good reference of what settings to use in which lighting conditions. The color temperature is in kelvins, or what light is measured in. Some settings are better for indoor lighting or outdoor lighting, overcast days and sunny days. Your white balance must be adjusted so that the color and the light appear natural. The image here clearly demonstrates the difference in white balance settings. Tungsten and fluorescent often appear blue in outdoor settings because they are actually intended for indoor fluorescent type of lighting. Daylight settings will appear yellow in indoor environments. That's because they are intended to be taken outdoors, where light from the sun often appears yellow or warm. Most digital cameras have multiple white balance settings. They usually are tungsten, fluorescent, daylight, cloudy, shade, and an auto mode. For these candid photographs, we will be adjusting our white balance settings so that the light and the color that we capture appear natural. This image is a great example of the different white balance settings on the same environment, ranging from tungsten, which appears very blue on the far left, to daylight settings, which appear more yellow or warm on the far right. Again, white balance takes into account the color temperature of different light sources. That means the relative coolness or warmth of white light. So in its basic form, white balance means adjusting the colors in your photograph so that the picture looks more natural. Once our photographs are taken, 3 candids and 1 posed shot, we will be editing them in Adobe Photoshop. For this project, we'll be creating a layout that includes 4 candid photographs that capture the client in a unique manner. The layout is meant to show off their personality, interests, and who they are. As photographers, we will create a color palette that is harmonious and also shows a mood. The colors you choose to select should go together well and communicate something about your client's personality. Is blue perhaps their favorite color? Would they like their page to feel calming? Are they the type of person that's always smiling, always bright and cheerful? Color is meant to portray so much more than just the color itself. We will learn to use simple shapes to add dimension to the piece or frame photographs. These shapes should not overpower the photographs themselves, but should be there to enhance the overall image or layout of the page. The page itself should lay out the photographs and any text in a unique, interesting way that once again shows off the client and who they are. Here are a couple examples. The photographs are candids for the most part and show the personality of the client. The layout of the pages are simple and effective and use text, background, and simple shapes to enhance the images and show the personality of the client. You, as the professional studio photographer, will be turning in the following to your client. 3 candid images, that means spontaneous images, not deliberately set up but capture a moment in time, that will be edited in Photoshop and can be in either black and white or color. It will also include 1 posed image, again edited in Photoshop, to be in either black and white or color. The final product will be 1 yearbook page, again edited in Adobe Photoshop, that focuses on layout, color harmony, and making the client look good and expressing their personality, interests, and who they are. Keep in mind the following tips and techniques that we discussed in this presentation. The gaze of your subject, the use of props, the perspective or angle at which the photograph is taken, the white balance, anticipating the moment, and candid images that capture the spontaneous events and personality of your client.